Hello, welcome to gagrul.net. This is Gagrul Live on Facebook. Last time we talked was during the war. After that, I don't think we talked, right?
No, we didn't.
Yeah. So, Mr. Martirosyan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Wally.
I'm going to put this in 3 dimensions. First, I want to ask you some about historical facts, and then we'll talk about the election a little bit, and then I'm going to have some suggestion. So
Sure.
basically 30, which is today, unfortunately, 30 years ago, Armenia had massive earthquake, 20, 30,000 people dead, 5,000 were homeless. Armenia declared independent. Russia come yank out all the factories. Armenia had no food, no fuel. They were burning trees. I don't know how old were you then, but I remember all that stuff. Then Azerbaijan at the same time was burning Armenian, throwing out of their homes. And Karabakh declared independent. Azerbaijan attacked Karabakh. Armenia had no army. Karabakh had only shotgun. They were able to defeat Azerbaijan with their army, military equipment. And they created, first time in history, a republic, new Republic of Karabakh. For 30 years, they were able, Armenians, to keep their borders in Artsakh, in Armenia, safe. So what happened? Why did we lose this war?
That's a good question, Wally. Armenians and Armenia lost the war because everything that was built, or there was an attempt to build, or at least an impression of an attempt of building something 30 years ago, was fake. Everything was built on sand, and it was a sand castle. It was a house of cards that collapsed once Azerbaijan took concrete steps towards securing its own victory. What happened 30 years ago was a crime. It was a crime initiated by Levon Ter-Petrosyan, and many people, including me, believe that because the first president of Armenia, Levon Ter-Petrosyan, was a Russian Special Services KGB agent, and that he implemented Russian policies inside Armenia and in regards to Nagorno-Karabakh in order to secure Russian and to serve Russian interests. And that led to a complete defeat of Armenia 30 years later. And let me clarify, let me explain briefly, if that's possible to do briefly, what I mean, what happened, and where the fault lines were. First of all, Levon Ter-Petrosyan came to power on the wave of reunification of Artsakh with Armenia. However, after becoming the leader of the country, Artsakh that was unified inside the Soviet Union with the Soviet Armenia already by a declaration and by a unanimous vote inside the Armenian Soviet parliament, according to Soviet laws, the reunification took place. But after that, Ter-Petrosyan came up with this very strange, at that point, idea of granting Artsakh, part of Armenia actually, independence, not from Azerbaijan, because it was no more part of Soviet Azerbaijan. It was no more part of Soviet Union, but it was part of Soviet Armenia, and then independent Armenia, granting it suddenly independence, claiming that that would help the international cause. We saw in 30 years that no one country, not one country, recognized Artsakh's fake independence, because Artsakh was never independent. In fact, Artsakh was always dependent on Armenia proper, because Artsakh was and still is part of Armenia, even though it is under occupation right now. Therefore, Ter-Petrosyan's policies were, in essence, treasonous. And many, again, including me, believe that they were dictated by Russia, by Moscow, in order to keep the Artsakh issue alive, the conflict alive, in order to have leverage in this issue, and to reach a deal with Azerbaijan, which was obviously going to be an oil country, an oil power, and Russia had on its mind selling off Artsakh and Armenia to Azerbaijan 30 years ago. They realized that deal last year. What the next regimes in Armenia did, they, being highly illiterate, I mean the leaders and the regimes themselves all together, and being under heavy influence of Moscow, being dictated and being supported only by Moscow, having huge opposition amongst the Armenian people inside Armenia, they relied on Russian, rather Kremlin's support. Therefore, they kept on carrying out Russian policies. They pushed Artsakh further away on international arena. They made it appear as if Artsakh is not part of Republic of Armenia, but an independent state, an utmost stupidity and a treasonous idea, in fact. And they made it appear, and they made the world believe that Armenia's and Artsakh's legal history starts in Soviet times, and that Stalin's decision was supposedly, according to those regimes' actions, legitimate, which it wasn't, in fact. Of Stalin's action and decision of Gov which is the Communist Caucasus Bureau of the Bolshevik Party, which gave Artsakh, took from Armenia and gave it to Soviet Azerbaijan. And Armenia started pursuing the thesis of self-determination, which was a destructive idea for the Armenian cause, because if you go for self-determination, that means you are part of the country in which or from which you try to self-determinate and gain your independence from. Therefore, you recognize that you belonged to Azerbaijan, which was never the case, because Artsakh was legally part of the Republic of Armenia, the first republic, and therefore the so-called Third Republic as well, because the First Republic was annexed by Russia. It was occupied by Bolsheviks. Therefore, the occupation was illegal. Therefore, every action regarding territorial integrity of the Republic of Armenia taken by the Bolshevik regime of the Soviet Union was highly illegal. But the Armenian regimes, starting with Levon Ter-Petrosyan, then Robert Kocharyan, then Serge Sarkisyan, and then Nikol Pashinyan, always recognized, in fact, recognized Stalin's and Bolshevik regime's actions as legitimate. Therefore, they never pursued the idea of Artsakh being part of Armenia, but they pursued Artsakh being independent, pursuing its self-determination, so-called self-determination from Azerbaijan, which brought us to this situation. When Azerbaijan said, okay, that's my territory, I'm not negotiating with you, I will take it by force. They came and they took the part of Armenia, Republic of Armenia, by force, because Armenia proper, Armenia itself, never officially recognized the historical and legal fact that Artsakh was part of the Republic of Armenia. The treason and the loss of war started 30 years ago. What Pashinyan's regime did, it finalized everything. And in my belief, and in many experts and politicians' belief, Pashinyan made a secret pact with Russia, with Turkey, and with Azerbaijan to hand over Artsakh to Azerbaijan through war, just what Levon Ter-Petrosyan was planning to do, but except Levon Ter-Petrosyan was planning to do it without the war. He had the courage to commit a treason or to advocate for a treason in an open manner, which Pashinyan never did. Pashinyan most probably agreed to a treasonous war in which many people would die, and the Armenian people would be explained that, listen, there was no way. Azerbaijanis came, we suffered so many casualties, and they just took the land by force. So Pashinyan didn't even have the courage of Levon Ter-Petrosyan to pursue a treasonous policy openly. That's what many people in diaspora just do not understand. They do not even know that that Artsakh was part of the First Republic of Armenia legally and internationally. Therefore, the Soviet-Armenia borders that now are being pushed and imposed upon Armenia by the Yerevan regime, pro-Turkish regime, and by Turkey and Azerbaijan and Russia themselves, are not Armenian borders, because the administrative inter-Soviet symbolic borders never could turn into inter-country or state borders between two countries. That has never happened in history before, and that's certainly not the case for the Soviet Union, which was a union of illegally occupied nations, including Armenia. But Armenia always had treasonous policies. Armenia always had leaders who were serving Russian interests, and the Russians were making backdoor deals with Turkey and Azerbaijan, and they finalized the deals, and they gave away Artsakh to the enemy. We suffer the consequences now, and we will suffer even more, because neither the society inside Armenia nor the Armenian communities in the diaspora, in their majority, of course with exceptions, but those are exceptions, not the rule, do not understand what has happened, why has happened, and what's going to happen. And what's going to happen is, if nothing changes, and I want to underscore this, if nothing changes, we're going to lose the second most important part of Armenia, which is now the first most important after the loss of Artsakh. That's Syunik. Once we lose Syunik or control over Syunik, Armenia is gone. There is never going to be Armenia again. There is never going to be a statehood again. There is never going to be an Armenian people anymore. People don't realize these things. They think this is an exaggeration. They think this is fear-mongering, which it's not, but that's the truth. We have to wake up. We have to come to our senses. We have to stop acting and being stupid and idiotic, and we have to raise our voices. We have to rebel against the illegal selling of, or the illegal trade in which the currency is Armenia. The trade is happening between Russia and Turkey, Russia and Azerbaijan. And Armenia has to resist this. But the Armenian society is deeply asleep. It is in coma, in fact. Yeah. And it seems that people are not even willing to wake up. And the situation is even worse in diaspora, where, yes, we have many people who understand the realities, many people who are well awake, but the majority is even in worse situation than the majority.
Everybody's numb. Right now, everybody's numb. Imagine this scandal of Pashinyan, Erdogan. I mean, if this was 5 years ago, Armenian street would be full of people in diaspora. Everyone would be in the street. Now is everybody numb? Seems to me like everybody, okay, there's nothing we could do.
Because instead of acting, Wally, people are depressed.
Yes.
But what the hell is depression when somebody is chopping off your head?
Yes.
Can you say, oh, I'm depressed, I don't want to think about it, oh, I am disappointed, I don't want to be involved in politics anymore. Excuse me, they are chopping off your head.
Yes.
How can you be so stupid and blind? But
Nobody
the
cares.
society is stupefied.
Nobody cares anymore.
Nobody cares anymore.
Pashinyan have put Armenia into deep, deep depression, and they are not able to wake up.
Wally, I agree with you. That's what he has done. But why people don't respond? So one person who is a nobody in essence.
Okay, so that was my question, my second question.
He's able to do this, and we as a people are going to sacrifice ourselves, our whole heritage, our history,
Well,
to one single creature?
Okay. How in earth this guy in Armenian, they say in, I don't know if you're Armenian, but in our Armenians language, they say as փողոցային սարսարի լակոտ. How did he fool you Armenians? You were part of that revolution too. How did he fool you all, took over this power? He has no business experience. He has no military experience. He has no diplomatic experience. He doesn't know how to negotiate. And let me show you this. These are your ruling government. They all came from the street.
Government is the picture below. It's the two guys.
Yes, well, exactly. So
who rule Armenia now.
So how do these idiots, total idiots, incompetent, they're going to go negotiate with the ruthless dictator of Turkey and Azerbaijan? I mean, is there?
He's not going to negotiate. He's begging for a meeting.
I know it is. Yes, begging.
And he's ready to give more concessions to Turkey, to talk to Turkey, to become friends and brothers with Turkey and with the Turkish government. Well, let me ask the first part of your question, Wally. I was part of the revolution and I was on the front line. The so-called revolution, which we call now a non-revolution.
It's Turkish revolution.
Why? It was a Russian operation, but none of us, at least I, wasn't aware about it. And 99% of the population in Armenia and in diaspora could never guess that either. So the absolute majority had no clue because that was such a sophisticated operation. But I'll explain it briefly again if time permits. Here is the deal. Here's the thing. First, Pashinyan, everybody knew who Pashinyan was. But in the past 10 years, when Pashinyan was very active in politics, he was speaking nationalistic things. He was speaking things that made sense. He was acting as a true patriot. He was speaking as somebody who's very much anti-corruption, anti-regime. He was defending on verbal level Armenian interests. He was talking a lot of things that made a lot of sense to a lot of people. And people thought that he had reformed, that he had changed his pro-Levon, i.e. pro-Ter-Petrosyan ideas, and he has come out of the influence of Ter-Petrosyan, especially taking into account that their interpersonal relations had worsened and they had cut ties. Therefore, one would think at that point, let's say in 2018, that Pashinyan has completely changed. He has advanced. He has improved. Because you know what? People have the right to be stupid at some time or for some period of time in their life, and then to advance, to improve, to change their ideas, and to come to their senses. That's what everybody supposed and suggested happened to Pashinyan. Now, when he came into this thing in 2018, there was huge tension against Serge Sarkisyan because there was April War before the 4-day war, because Serge Sarkisyan was talking about handing over the 7 liberated territories to Azerbaijan, about his readiness to do concessions to Azerbaijan, because he had initiated the Zurich protocols with Turkey, and etc., etc. And he was a very bad ruler. He destroyed Armenia. He destroyed the economy. The corruption was at an all-time high. So there was huge discontent inside the country. Therefore, everybody rebelled against Sarkisian. And the idea was not that Pashinyan was a hero, Pashinyan was this, Pashinyan was that. No, everybody rallied around Pashinyan because he was the flag bearer, he was a pole bearer of the movement of the revolution. Therefore, I also, being a public figure, supported him, and I was on the front lines. I saw things during that period that raised some questions for me, but I couldn't find answers. For example, I didn't know why a special military jet arrived from Russia during those so-called revolution days, why Pashinyan went to meet with the Russians and came back, and his explanation was it was a secret meeting, that he was just talking to them about transfer of power and trying to convince them to transfer to him power peacefully. To make the long story short, this was a Russian organized operation to remove Sarkisian because they knew war is coming. They had already the deal done with Azerbaijan and with Aliyev. They needed a 100% trustworthy person as head of Armenia to carry out that operation successfully, of handing over Artsakh to Azerbaijan and Turkey. For that, Sarkisian didn't have support, number one, because because he was going for the actually third term under the name of prime ministership.
He screwed up.
He acted stupidly, and the whole country paid the price for that. If he didn't go for the third factual term,
right,
he would hand over power democratically to somebody who would be elected democratically. That wouldn't be Pashinyan. That would have been somebody from national powers, from pro-Armenian, pro-state powers. And this tragedy would have never happened.
Yes.
But he decided to stay in power, and Russia was...
The minute he injected himself to be a prime minister, that's where everything got screwed up.
But let me give you the whole picture. So the moment he decided that that's going to be him, Russians got very much worried, because they thought that if war breaks out, mid-war, Sarkisian, being this hated figure, will be immediately removed by the people or by the military. Therefore, they needed somebody who would sustain a crisis like a war, who would have huge popularity. For that, they made their choice, and they decided to replace him with Karen Karapetyan, who was the prime minister at that point. And at that point, prime minister was not head of state. He was just head of the government. But the system was changing from semi-presidential so-called system to so-called parliamentary system. Therefore, the operation was the following. Karen Karapetyan is using Nikol Pashinyan to rally the people against Sarkisian. From inside the Republican Party, he would act against Sarkisian. And then Moscow would tell Sarkisian, look, there is a revolution coming. We need you gone. We need Karen Karapetyan to take power from you in order to maintain our influence inside Armenia and over Armenia. Don't jeopardize our influence. We don't support you anymore. That's actually what happened. But suddenly at some point, Nikol realized that, oh my God, these people are really out in the streets. He never expected hundreds of thousands in the street. He expected thousands or tens of thousands. So at some point he thought, why not me? Why not him? So he said that if it's not him, the prime minister, then Armenia will have no other prime minister. That's why Karen Karapetyan said that he's not going to resign, that he's going to be acting prime minister, which was against the constitution, because there is no provision for acting prime ministership. You can be deputy prime minister, which he was at that point already, but not because Sarkisian was a prime minister for a couple of days. He was not president anymore, and the system had changed already a couple of days ago, the system of governance inside Armenia. And Karen Karapetyan freed Nikol Pashinyan and his gang from jail where Sarkisian
stayed there.
Yeah, and then Pashinyan rebelled against Karapetyan, thinking that why would he hand the popular support over to Karen Karapetyan when people support him? Then Karen Karapetyan got into conflict with Pashinyan. And then the Russian plane came. supposedly carrying very high-ranking Russian officials. Especially, it's believed that two heads of Russian secret services or special services were on the plane. The foreign intelligence and the domestic intelligence agencies heads, Naryshkin and Patrushev. And Pashinyan most obviously made a deal with them, telling them, I will do anything you need, let me become head of state. That's why he never touched really anybody. That's why he resuscitated Robert Kocharyan's political figure and political persona. He brought him, he arrested him, then he released him. Then his constitutional court, which was completely under his control, almost completely under his control, took away Article 301, according to which Robert Kocharyan was being charged. Therefore, the charge were dropped, and Kocharyan was able to enter the parliament in these elections with the help of Russia post-war period. Therefore, Pashinyan, on the other side, in many people's, including my belief, went on to make a separate deal with Turks and Azerbaijanis, most probably thinking, why would he not make something out of this Russian, Turkish, Azerbaijani deal himself as well? Therefore, most probably, we suppose, he entered into secret negotiations with Azerbaijanis and Turkey about the handover of Artsakh, which he did through a war. And the rest is history. The rest is pretty well known, I hope, for your viewers as well. And if there's those who don't know, I hope the first part of my speech made things clear for them. But that's what actually happened.
So during election, I was watching it, all of you. You guys were all attacking Kocharyan, Sarkisyan. It was like they are the one who lost the war. Very little questioning this criminal Pashinyan, you know. And, you know, like there were so many questions could be asked, but all political parties, they were all attacking Kocharyan and Sarkisyan. Why was that?
Well, that's a good question, but that question is not addressed to me because I represent the National Democratic Axis, Azgain Ժողովրդավարական Բևեռ, which is the only power in Armenia, the only serious political power and party in Armenia. And I'm a member of the council, the governing council of the power, and it consists of 10 people. There is no distinct leader, one single leader. There are 10 leaders. We are the only one who is not under the Russian influence or is not acting as a Russian agent. The only major serious political power on the arena. And we have criticized and politically attacked all the previous three regimes. Ter-Petrosyan's regime, Sarkisyan's regime, Kocharyan's regime, seeing them as links in the chain that ended with the link of Pashinyan. But most of all, most harshly, we have criticized Pashinyan. We have done that. Other parties have diverted attention either from Kocharyan's political power or from Sarkisyan's political power or from Pashinyan's political power. We have targeted and politically attacked all of those powers. And that's on the record. Everybody in this country knows that. We are also the only political power that advocates for a brand new agenda in the Armenian politics, which has never trusted in Soviet period naturally and post-Soviet period unnaturally, but which should have been adopted. And that's for Armenia to become a Western ally. Armenia has been a Russian subject, de facto, factual subject of Russia, has been under Russia's colonial rule during Soviet period and post-Soviet period, even during the past 30 years of so-called independence that was never true, that never happened. Let me just finish. And we are the only ones who even now advocates not for staying with Russia, but getting rid of Russia decolonizing Armenia and becoming a dignified ally of the West, notably, and first of all, the United States of America and the French Republic.
Okay. Right now, Armenia is in the middle leadership crisis. You have this incompetent person is running. Right now, it's not ally issues. Russia already there. You can't kick Russia out tomorrow. If you do it, it's gonna take years, 5 years, 10 years.
No,
But
no,
right
Vali.
now, Armenia is in a leadership crisis. This war criminal Pashinyan is doing everything in secret. Nobody knows. If Erdogan didn't come out, says like Pashinyan wants to meet me, we would not even know. Even though we know he went to Batumi, met Turkish agent. You know, so this guy has to be removed. You guys have to find out. You know, it's. I made the show on these ally things. It is not the ally. It is the leadership. If you are a smart leader, you could maneuver, you could manipulate any ally. This idiot does not have that capacity.
Wale, he's not an idiot. He's a very dangerous person, and many believe he's a traitor.
Yes.
So idiocy doesn't come first in this issue. Now, let me please disagree with you, and I'll explain you why regarding the leadership issue and the issue of the allies. First of all, Pashinyan stays in power only thanks to Russia, which is considered by some pro-Russian powers inside Armenia, not people anymore, by the way, as Armenia's so-called ally. Of course, that's an ally that sold us off to Turkey and Azerbaijan, the Armenians. If not for Russia, Pashinyan would never survive the bunker where he was, the Ministry of Defense's bunker, where he was hiding on 9th of November 9th, 2020. He would never stay in power. He would never get re-elected, which actually happened these past elections. He and the previous regimes got into parliament only because Russia wanted them to be there. And Russia needs Pashinyan very much. Therefore, it's a foreign issue. It's an external issue. In power, because he's going to finalize the deal officially. He's going to put his signature and put the rubber stamp on the deal that Russia has made with Turkey and Azerbaijan, the backdoor deal, to hand over the rest of the Armenia to Azerbaijan.
So what are you guys going to do?
I am telling you, I'm coming to that now. That's going to happen under the pretext of establishing peace. And he has announced that he's going to be signing a so-called peace treaty. That's going to be recognizing Armenia's borders as Soviet borders, which is going to be meaning to renounce or denounce the legal boundaries of the Republic of Armenia, which are way larger than the Soviet illegal administrative inter-country borders, Soviet Republic borders, rather. And he's gonna, by doing that, he's also gonna be recognizing Artsakh, or Nagorno-Karabakh, as they say in the West, as part of Azerbaijan. Now, if you do not get rid of allies like that, the next leader, if you do get rid of Pashinyan only, the next leader is going to be Kocharyan, or he's going to be a billionaire from Russia. There are talks about a billionaire from Russia. Everybody knows that billionaire. He's a fuzzy-looking, probably well-loved guy, but he's a Russian of Armenian origin who's going to be carrying out Russian policies again, and then you're going to be having the same picture again. Therefore, the Armenian politics is being determined and it depends on who the country's ally is. If your ally is the United States and France and the European Union and many other countries, including even Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, which have interest in this region, and that interest is primarily stopping Turkey from becoming even more powerful. And to do that, They understand that Armenia should stay where it is, and Armenian people should be here. Therefore, the foreign policy issue is number one issue at this point. It's Russia that keeps all these people in their offices who sell the country off to the enemy. If it's not Pashinyan, it's going to be Kocharyan. If it's not Kocharyan, it's going to be that billionaire. If it's not that billionaire, it's going to be somebody from Serge Sarkisyan's party.
So
if Russia runs the show, nothing will change in Armenia.
What is the solution?
The solution is just one, Wally, and people do not realize it. Because Armenian people have, some Armenian people, or rather many Armenian people, have the stupid way of thinking that everything has been decided for them somewhere up there. And it's not God.
That too. You're saying that too.
No. I'm saying something different.
Because you
I'm
said
saying
Russia make all those decisions.
Of course, because we let Russia make those decisions.
Okay.
But what I'm saying we have to replace Russia, which means we have the power to replace Russia. You say it's going to take time. It's going to take years. No, I tell you, it's going to take a day. People will not believe this, but that's how it happens. That's what Georgia did.
Okay, give me your steps. How are you going to do it?
First of all, people should wake up. They should wake up from their coma. And it's not deep sleep. It's a coma. They should wake up. They should feel the streets, feel the squares. They should get rid of this government. And they should bring to power powers like us. For example, National Democratic Axis that is the only one that has the agenda of replacing Russian influence with Western friendship and alliance. That's how you are able to save the country. What?
That would be bloodshed in the street.
Why do you say so?
Because Pashinyan is not going to give up the power.
Well, if he decides to kill people, excuse me, what can I tell you? His actions at least have resulted in at least 5,000 deaths.
Right.
Tens of thousands, if not more, wounded and disabled people, lost land and countless losses, and so many prisoners of war and missing in action. Therefore, if you ask me what he's going to do, I don't know what he's going to do. But if people feel the streets, he's going to be out pretty soon. And I don't think there's going to be many people who will fight for him or who will kill for him. That's number one. Number two, if he's not going to be replaced, if he's not replaced, there are going to be Turks and Azerbaijanis in Armenia. Then you will see the true bloodshed.
Already there is Azerbaijani agent in Armenia.
Not one, I guess. Not one, I believe. I believe there are many.
Exactly.
I believe
there are lots of them. That's why I'm afraid to go to Armenia.
I believe there are also many who are in power, in the highest echelons of the power. But that's exactly why people need to wake up, need to stop thinking that somebody has decided for them, that Russia has decided for them, because as long as they think so, that's going to be true. Russia will keep on deciding for Armenia, and is going to be dealing with Armenia's currency in its own trade with Turkey and Azerbaijan. And if Armenians stop thinking that way, then they will take the matters into their hands. Then they will run their own destiny. They will decide their own destiny, and they will get a government that will be based on national interests, and Armenian and American and French national interests at this point in time in history coincide completely. In fact, every time when Armenia has been truly independent, be it for a couple of months or 2 years, 100 years ago, Armenian and Western, notably American interests have coincided completely. And America has proven many, many times that it is a natural ally, that it is a friend of Armenia. Except Armenians have been fed a different propaganda, Soviet propaganda, that has never ceased existing, even in so-called post-Soviet period. The Soviet Union is still well and alive and kicking, and we see that in what happens with the Armenian borders. When the Soviet illegally drawn borders are being imposed by Russia, Turkey, and Azerbaijan and the Yerevan's treasonous regime as something resembling legitimate borders. That's why Azerbaijanis and Turks are forcing, and this one is not resisting, to have a document signed in which that will be registered as a matter of fact, as a legal document, as a legal fact.
Okay.
That's why, again, people should wake up and they should take the matters into their hands.
Armenian revolution is identical to Egyptian revolution. In Egypt, again, they had Pashinyan in there called Mursi. Again, he was like Pashinyan in the street, protest, go jail, out of jail, you know. Eventually, he revolutionized. People went on the street like Pashinyan, and then they, like Pashinyan, were saying, oh, the corrupt government, the corrupt government, the corrupt government. So everything was the corrupt. But they never talked about themselves, how corrupt they are. So then he comes in power, like Pashinyan, get elected, like Pashinyan. The world congratulate. Everybody said Mursi is a legitimate government, you know, and he become in power. But in Egypt, they had a military general. He knew this is a danger for Egypt. And he revolted on them, arrest them, throw them on a jail, stabilize the country, call new election, and now Egypt is a powerful country. And who was condemning it? Turkey. Erdogan was the number one, because Erdogan was behind Morsi. And this whole copycat of Egypt, Armenia, exactly the same. The only difference is Armenian military, they knew Pashinyan is a traitor. 35 Armenian general, they sent a letter to Pashinyan to resign, but instead of going there, grabbing, capturing this guy, putting in jail, now we would be witnessing Pashinyan on the trial. But they didn't do it.
Because these generals, Wally, you nailed it. You said it. Because these Armenian generals do not have the sense of citizenship, the sense of patriotism that General al-Sisi had. They never had the determination and the brains that Sisi had. Therefore, they acted as teenage girls, not generals. A teenage girl would act the way they acted, and that would have been justified for a teenage girl because that's a teenage girl. But a teenage girl cannot be a general of the general staff of Armenia, and those people were generals and they acted like a teenage girl.
But they knew. They knew
what
something.
I mean, they knew everything, but look who's the head of the general staff now. The so-called general staff, which translates into the American English probably head of Joint Chiefs of Staff. That's a person who cannot talk to media, who speaks nonsense, who doesn't answer any single question, who's completely under Pashinyan's rule. The previous one, Oni Gasparian, acted like a complete, just the actions were like completely moronic. He demanded Pashinyan to resign, accused him in every single sin that most probably Pashinyan had committed. And then when Pashinyan fired him, he went to court. I mean, complete nonsense what happened in Armenia.
Yeah.
You're talking about generals. I'll tell you where the problem is. The problem is here, Wally. The generals in Armenian army, the absolute majority of them, are Russian educated, most probably have been recruited by Russian special services, have no sense of duty towards their country. It's the regular soldiers who were heroes and who are still heroes. The regular soldiers, not the generals. The generals are a complete disaster who only think about their salaries, who only think about serving like puppies to their master, who, by the way, many of whom after the retirement go and collect Russian federal budget money allocated to them as generals of a foreign country, which is Armenia, of course, but an ally. It's a way of recruiting and controlling those generals and armies sometimes. Therefore, unfortunately, the Armenian army has basically or essentially, no general that has a sense of citizenship.
If you have military you don't trust, and you have this corrupt Pashinyan government and other former government, how are you going to solve Armenia's problem?
Only with the help of people. Otherwise, yes, you're true. There is no army. And by the way, they are disbanding the army. They are cutting off two huge military units of the Armenian army that are called corps. The two corps, Banakain Corpus in Armenian, they are being cut off. There is serious talk, and the government has announced their plans on turning the Armenian army into a professional army, which means paid army, no compulsory service. Do you imagine what it is for a country under existential threat to pass from compulsory service to a professional service like it is in France? France can afford it. The United States can afford it. A country like Armenia, a tiny country like Armenia, cannot afford it, especially if Armenia is under existential threat. So they are disbanding and destroying the army itself. There are almost no serious weapons left inside the Armenian army. No reforms are taking place. They are announcing reforms, which means their reforms are going to bring a lot more destruction than the Azerbaijanis did. There is a plan in place, Wally, and it's being realized step by step. And the plan is to destroy the Armenian statehood. Pashinyan regime is carrying out that plan in accordance with its allies in Ankara, Baku, and Moscow. And the Armenian people are the only ones who can change the situation, but they don't do anything. They don't even realize that the only solution to their problem that they can have is to become an ally of the United States, in which case Armenia will be defended, Armenia will be supplied with arms and weapons, because it's absolutely in American interest now to save Armenia, because America doesn't want Turkey to become a stronger country and to turn into a world superpower. Because once Armenia is gone, look at the map. Turkey is going to factually and in reality unite with Azerbaijan and move further to the east and to the north, and Turkey is going to become unstoppable, and it's going to become a second China to America. It's going to become a country like China is to the United States. That's why the United States is very much interested in preserving Armenia. Same is with France.
Tomorrow, Pashinyan go there, sign treaty with Turkey and Azerbaijan. What are you guys going to do?
We shall see. We shall see. We cannot do anything without popular support. That's a fact. Nobody can do anything. If somebody believes a political power, even such a popular power with growing popularity, with a brand new ideology for Armenia, with a working solution like National Democratic Axis, Azgan Jortarakan Bever, is able to do something by itself against a regime that's very determined to destroy its own country, against Turkey, against Azerbaijan, against Russia, then you're mistaken. No single political power can do those things. Only the people of the country can do. Once the people rise, the West will support the people's choice. West is the only power, the West is the only power that guards and defends Armenian borders, not the Russian occupying forces that are being placed along almost every side of Armenia, on every single mile of the border, in order to take military control over Armenia.
Well,
it's not, the West is not like Russia. And the West is the one that defends Armenia from Turkish occupation right now. Except Armenian people don't realize that.
All I know, it's you draw a very, very bad situation for Armenia. I just don't see, if it's military you don't trust, The political parties you don't trust.
You trust the military, Wally. You just said in your question that
But
they
yeah,
are
I
not.
know, but I'm just saying. And then you have this corrupt Pashinyan, which is now locked down. He knows he cannot any longer go walk in Yerevan street, and for him, he's by nature a violent person. We all know, and he's gonna do everything he knows for Pashinyan is a dead or alive. Period. He's gonna do everything to keep himself in there, whether sign off with Turkey, with Russia, with Azerbaijan. He knows those people gonna Erdogan gonna defend them and protect them. He knows that.
And I'm gonna repeat my statement. The only game changer is the people. If the Armenian people wake up, they will be absolutely able to save their country, to save their lives, to get rid of this treasonous regime, to secure a prosperous future in the future, because we can't talk about prosperous future now. We are losing Armenia as a statehood, as a country, and as a people. We need to stop this first, and then we need to start to rebuild this country. But again and again and again, I'm going to repeat one more time, it's people who are the only players in the world who can stop this, who can change the situation. By the way, 1st of October at 6:30 p.m. Yerevan time, 1st of October, in a couple of days, the National Democratic Axis has called a huge rally in the Freedom Square, which is the Opera Square, to start a street movement, a public-wide movement against this regime. And our goal is to achieve a regime change through political, peaceful means with the help of a popular support. We do almost similar rallies throughout the diasporan centers, not in Russia, of course, because that's impossible in Russia. But we are planning on protesting in front of Armenian consulates and embassies in the Western countries. And I call on the diasporans to follow the scheduled events and to take part in them. You have no right to be depressed, because as a result of this depression, we may lose our lives, we may lose our ancestors' land, we may lose the statehood that our parents have created, and we have to act. Therefore, there is no room for staying depressed, there is no room for staying indifferent or being disappointed. That's the claim that I hear the most. It's almost equal to treason to be disappointed now in the political struggle. This is a final struggle. If we lose this struggle, there is going to be nothing to our identity anymore. We're going to be calling ourselves Armenian by name only, and in one generation or two max, we will lose any trace of what we have ever had in history. That's what happens in Artsakh, that's completely occupied now. Armenia doesn't control Artsakh at all. That's another lie that there are some territories that are under Armenian control. No, there are some territories where
this is how you could go to Artsakh. This is the road.
But by the way, there are kidnappings inside the physical territory of the Republic of Armenia, and that's a term that New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez circulated first, and I thank him for that, because we were searching for an appropriate term. We don't want to call it sovereign territory of Armenia, because sovereign territory of Armenia is a way larger territory. The Soviet borders are physical territory of Armenia, and on the highway from Goris to Kapan, inside the Republic of Armenia, which a huge section was donated in post-war period by Pashinyan regime, and Pashinyan most probably himself, to Azerbaijanis. They have a checkpoint, and they kidnap Armenians traveling inside Armenia. And they are stopping the cars. They are scraping off the Armenian flag and symbols from cars with military daggers and knives. So Armenia is a failed state. We are in the process of being destroyed, and it's a program. It's an agenda that Azerbaijan and Turkey are pursuing relentlessly, and they will achieve their goals unless we shake ourselves, we come to our senses, and we start acting politically inside this country. And by the way, I want to also underscore one very important thing. Many people call on us on the National Democratic Axis to take arms, to do this, to do that. That's not going to happen. I have to disappoint these people. National Democratic Axis is only for political resolution. And if the people decide to commit a mass national suicide or state suicide, they will commit it. The National Democratic Axis is not gonna resource to military or armed struggle. It doesn't have the resources. It's not gonna do it. It doesn't support that idea for itself, and nobody should lay the responsibility of saving the country on a political party or on a group of people, and people should stop spreading those stupid demands and ideas. They should act. They should understand that their presence in the streets is the only way, and it is a peaceful way. It is the peaceful way to achieve a regime change and to bring salvation to this country in the process of destruction and self-destruction as well.
You know, when I saw Armenian voted for Pashinyan second time, I lost my hope on Armenia.
Wally, many people lost, but we must also realize one thing. Not everybody voted for him. We deeply believe that at least 200, 250,000 votes were rigged by the regime. It's a different issue that people, almost all the people, bear his presence, bear his regime, are indifferent to him staying in power and his regime staying in power and doing with Armenia what he does. That is the main issue, because almost everybody in this country knows and believes that the elections were rigged, but they were rigged very professionally. We have seen that in the vote counts, on the example of vote counts of our party, where in many polling stations in the regions, we would see, let's say, 100 people voted, 30 people voted for National Democratic Axis, Azgan Jortarakan Bever, and there is an official document stating that fact, and the Central Electoral Commission releases a different number, which is a 0 for us. We have cases like that. We have submitted that to Prosecutor General's office. No response, no arrest, nothing. But we deeply believe that's how the elections have been rigged mostly, but also through different mechanisms as well. Many experts believe that tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands, emigres, people who left Armenia, or dead people turned out to have voted in this election. So election is not just the voting day, it's also the period preceding it and post-election period, post-voting period.
Pashinyan, as you said a few minutes ago, when I say idiot, he's smart too. He is pumping up the police. He's increasing their salaries. I don't know how many times. He's giving a raise to the civil servant. So he's building his popularity there because like Erdogan, like Azerbaijani dictator, they know you don't need military, you need the police. Police is the one who's gonna defend you and protect you and corrupt everything. And so that's
yes and no, because Erdogan is a Turkish nationalist and Pashinyan is many people believe he's a Turkish nationalist too. But he's not an Armenian nationalist.
Oh, I believe that too.
Erdogan strengthens Turkish army and armed forces. Turkish army is stronger than ever in its history, thanks to new technologies that they developed or that they adopted and modified. And they are becoming leaders of unmanned military equipment in the world. They are running just behind the United States and Israel, almost, which is an immense achievement. But Pashinyan is doing the contrary what Erdogan does for Turkey. Pashinyan destroys his own army, in fact. And you're right, he strengthens the police, because that's the repressive and the repressive force in the hands of the regime, which has no principle. Police are called by many inside Armenia Yenicheris. And we know who Yenicheris were. They were the Turkish killer forces up until 100 years ago that were the most ruthless, the most powerful military force that would carry out any brutal command.
Yeah,
the Armenian police, yes, here this is a woman who's a family member of a martyred soldier who died in this war. They are arresting her, they are brutalizing her, and these are the Red Berets, who are considered to be the most brutal force in the police of Armenia. So the police of Armenia is seen by many as a Turkish force inside Armenia. And that is why Pashinyan is strengthening them. That is why Pashinyan understands that the police of Armenia, the National Security Agency of Armenia, are the National Security Service, rather, are his tools of staying in power.
Even journalists, he's banning journalists. Even today, he banned a journalist on the cemeteries, you know. Like here is this girl. Armenia.
Yes, Bali, because there is no democracy in Armenia left anymore. If under the previous undemocratic regimes, there was a resemblance of some democracy, now all of that is gone.
Yeah, now this is your parliament.
This is the prime minister's guards in military fatigues, military uniforms, trying to break up a fight inside the parliament and banning journalists from covering it and removing journalists by force from the chamber of the parliament because the journalists were covering the event and they didn't want the journalists to see what the ruling party was doing.
When I went to parliament, you know, I used to go twice a year, Armenia. I went to parliament. There was only 2 soldiers in the front. There were a door in the back. Couple of people check your bag stuff. That's it. Now you have hundreds of police in there to protect Pashinyan thugs.
You have more to protect himself personally. He travels with huge amounts of guards, armed guards and vehicles. Huge sections of the roads are being blocked for him to travel. He is the first leader who doesn't even care how it all appears. He just knows he has his base and he can stupefy his base even further by the things that he does. For example,
that was a good word.
Yeah, but that's a state policy on his part. Yeah. We saw, for example, this so-called Independence Day festivities that were to cause a lot of protests, but they didn't. And suddenly we see that his base saw it as a very good event, even though, what kind of event are we talking about? If we have hundreds of prisoners of war being tortured, enduring inhumane conditions, and craving for death. They are craving for death. Their conditions are so bad in Baku. We have so many fresh graves in Yerabalur. Just go to Yerabalur. There are thousands of flags flying on the fresh graves. That's an impossible sight to see. And he said that we need to have festivities of the 30th anniversary of the so-called independence. That's not even the Independence Day. Armenia has one Independence Day, and that's May 28, when the First Republic gained independence. That is the Independence Day. This day was the day of trying to get a re-independence day And that attempt failed because Armenia lost its independence, especially completely the remnants of independence in this past year after the war. Armenia has zero independence right now.
How could you have
And people are
independent?
claiming
Your borders are all managed by Russians. What independent?
exactly, not only borders, your politics, 99% is run by Russians. Your parliament is completely controlled by Russians openly because they let only pass three parties. Pashinyan's party, Kocharyan's party, Serge Sarkisyan's party. All the other parties were left out. Now, many people today say that, oh, they played some good songs, some national songs, some ethnic songs, some good classical music. You know, the spectacle was nice. So actually, probably these festivities were good. I mean, how stupid you can be. 1 year hasn't even passed since the war broke out. We have thousands of dead, young, almost children, 18 to 20 years old children, so many volunteers, so many wounded soldiers who have no future. I have seen a handsome, handsome boy completely disfigured, lost half of his head, half of his brain is gone, he's in vegetative state, laying in bed in the soldier's house, so-called, in a hospital. That guy has no future. He has no life left. Couple of months or maybe years
Yeah.
at best.
He is.
He's 18, 19-year-old. I'm speaking now. I'm almost crying. You have all of this tragedy around, and you have these festivities, and he called them colorful
How
festivities.
many million
that
he
we need.
spent on that?
Nobody knows. Obviously, millions were spent. There was a drone show, by the way, and drones are very symbolic for this period because Armenia lost this war also militarily, not diplomatically, but militarily lost to drones, Turkish drones. You didn't have any single drone during the war. There were only 12 or 13 that
Look,
were
Let me talk about drone. Let me say, 2000
combating.
2016, I was in Armenia. They were, show the military. I think it was the 25th. There were drones. They had their drones that time, even before 2016. So Pashinyan came and just pushed it aside.
Ali, those were not working drones. You must understand. Those karunk and stuff, those were all basically toys. They were prototypes. According to my information, there were only 12 or 13 drones, unarmed drones, that took part on the Armenian side in the war. All of them were grounded by the Azerbaijani military countermeasures. They were just grounded. They were just brought down in the Azerbaijani side. 12 or 13. 1 year has passed. To this day, Armenia doesn't have one single military armed drone. Not one single one. A year has passed. A year, Wally. There is a talk in military circles that Russians have sold 4 drones called Arlan that they developed recently. But there is also talk in military circles that all of those drones are faulty. They don't work. And if they work also, they work using fuel like gas, like petrol, which is ridiculous in this day and age because that's a heat source and it can be brought down from shoulder to air weapons, which is the most ridiculous thing out there. Armenia has no drones. Armenian army has no drones to this point. This is how you know that there is a state policy in place to destroy the army and the country itself from within.
Okay. Well, we've gone quite a bit. And I thank you for all your help. And maybe we should do it again on one particular. Now we covered lots of stuff. Maybe we could talk in one subject, because I still believe the only solution is Egyptian solution to Armenia getting rid of Pashinyan. But you tell me the military is
That's
different.
impossible, unfortunately, because there is no Sisi in Armenia. I mean, unfortunately, in terms of not having generals who have sense of duty towards the country, who uh, who could just position themselves as good citizens and defenders of the country from the enemy, be it an outside enemy or an enemy within. In the end, Wally, let me thank you very much for having me on your show. And also, I want to address the diaspora, if you permit, for probably 1 or 2 minutes. And I want to touch two subjects. Number one, if you, dear diasporans, are going to be continuing doing what you have done always and done it in a pretty mindless way, and you're going to be enjoying the same results, which is if you're going to be sending money or financing building of villages, building of, let's say, the program that we have now in Armenia, unfortunately, 100 houses for Artsakh, and etc. I'll tell you why, unfortunately. That's the most stupid project ever, because those houses are going to be left to Azerbaijan as well. If you're going to be financing the renovation of schools, of hospitals, thinking that you're doing a good job, helping the orphans and etc., yes, all of those are humanitarian good issues. But all of that, all of the money that you're going to be spending without spending on politics proper itself in order to put in place people who will care for the country, in order to support and finance them, you're going to be getting what you got with all the billions or hundreds of millions that you invested in Artsakh. All is going to go to Azerbaijanis. They're going to be enjoying the fruits of your mindless donations. And if they were not mindless that time, even though they were partly because you were not investing in politics, you were keeping yourselves out of Armenian politics, thinking that that's not good. We need the photo ops with the leaders of the country. We don't need to get involved in the politics. I'm not talking about all the people. I'm talking about the, some big guys, right? And I want to make this distinction. Then everything is going to go to enemy, without any doubt. What you should do, you should finance and you should get involved in politics and support the powers, and that's one power right now, which is, again, the National Democratic Access, that have the only agenda for the solution, not to let all your other investments and help and aid provided to Armenia to become an Azerbaijani property. You have to change the politics first. You have to participate in it, and participate in it financially, because if you cannot come and be in the streets and be in the planning of political actions and all that stuff, you can support with your contributions. Do not do any other programs, because they are going to have the same fate as what other contributions met in all of Artsakh.
I agree on that.
That's number one. And number two, if you permit, get political. Do not stay apolitical. Do not think that you don't have anything to do. Yes, diaspora can play a major role in Armenian destiny. Diaspora can put a lot of pressure. Diaspora can help financially the powers that see the solution, that they know the solution of this existential issue and problem. And diaspora should get involved in our protest movement. I'm repeating again, for those who are inside Armenia and for those who are in diaspora, October 1st is the date when we're going to be having protests all around the world, in the Western world, and in Armenia proper. In Armenia, it's at 6:30 p.m. in Freedom Square. In diaspora, you can check with your local chapters of National Democratic Access. It's going to be posted online as well. Please take part, especially Armenians in Los Angeles. Please follow our LA office and chapter schedule, and please be present. Please be a good Armenian. Please do not stay indifferent anymore. You don't have that right anymore. None of us does have that right anymore.
All right, great. So you made your marketing things too. So that was good. Good. I thank you very much for coming, and stay there for a minute. And thank you for our viewer watching. So you could see Mr. Martirosyan, he has lots of stuff, It's always interesting to talk to him. And I also enjoy talking to Ara. He's a very smart guy. You know,
Ambassador Arapapyan, you mean?
yeah, he's. I feel sorry, like intelligent people like Ara. It's not in the government. It's not doing something. All you have those boneheads, criminals like Pashinyan and his gangs. You know, it's just like this is why my anger is on Armenia. You know, like you have all those intelligent people, smart people in Armenia, in diaspora, and you couldn't find, but only Pashinyan has zero credential.
No, you
Zero
could.
credential.
Russia wanted. You could. Russia wanted stupid people to rule Armenia for
Yeah,
the past
maybe
30.
maybe that's the case.
Because that's easy to push their agenda, and it was easy to rule over the country through these people.
Yeah. At least before he would put as a foreign minister somebody else outside this party. Now is 100%. If you look at here, all the leaderships are under his control. Is his street protesters, you know, and those street
Again,
protesters.
Raleigh, the people who run Armenia are the two people below in one picture.
Yeah.
It's not the four above.
Yeah, I agree with you. I said that many times. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much. And thank
For
you for
having
our
me.
viewer. We will be coming out with more stuff, and we've been blocked by Facebook because of Pashinyan thugs in Facebook. They report on you, so they cannot shut us. We do it on YouTube and Twitters, and also we do it here too. So thank you again, and we'll see you soon.